And now to the questions many of us are wondering about. Do aliens exist? Are we alone in this universe? Well, for the first half century, astronomers have been around the world scanning the cosmos with massive radio telescopes in hopes of finding some sign of intelligent life. Seth Shostak, a senior astronomer at SETI Institute, predicts that we'll hear from intelligent life within the next 2 decades. And Dr. Shostak is joining us today to talk more about that. Thank you so much for joining us today. So you're looking for intelligence beings elsewhere in the universe, and you're doing this by trying to tune in their radio signals, but are you also sending signals into space?
Well, the short answer, Natasha, is no. We don't do that. We leave that to RT, for example, or the radar sets that are around the world, and of course all the radio transmitters. They've been sending messages into space. We've occasionally done it. There have been various space probes that have been sent out beyond the solar system that have, records or plaques or images, and there have been occasional radio transmissions. But in general, we listen, we don't talk.
And some scientists think that there's a huge risk to send messages into the cosmos. What are their concerns, and why don't you think it's dangerous?
Well, there have been some complaints that to deliberately transmit into space, an activity that some people would like to do as a valid experiment, a social experiment for us, maybe even a valid experiment in terms of getting a reply from the extraterrestrials. Well, they say, maybe you shouldn't do that because you send a message out into space, you don't know what's out there. I mean, maybe the aliens are friendly, maybe they just like to sit around and read poetry, but on the other hand, maybe some of them are aggressive, and you may just happen to hit an aggressive society. They hear that we're here, we've located ourselves, and they send their interstellar battle wagons down to Earth and, obliterate the planet or do something else to ruin your entire day. So there are people who are concerned that this could be dangerous. I am not concerned because we're broadcasting every day messages into space, so it's really too late to worry about that.
Interesting. And so what kind of proof do we have so far when it comes to intelligent life living elsewhere besides Earth?
But we don't have any proof. Actually, we don't know about any life beyond Earth, and that includes, pond scum, maybe on Mars or some of the moons of Jupiter or Saturn. These are all places, there are a half dozen of them, really. They're places where there could be life relatively nearby, places we could get to with our rockets, other places in our own solar system, and yet we still don't know if there's any life there. There might be. I think that probably within the next decade or two, we'll find evidence that there's life under the sands of Mars or under the ice of some of the moons of Jupiter or Saturn. That could be. But today, we have to say, look, as far as we know, the only life that exists in the universe is right here on Earth. I would be astounded if that were true in the end.
Interesting. And so are there plans to broadcast messages to other cosmic societies? And if so, what would the message be to them?
Well, if we were to send a message, my personal preference would be to send the internet. I would just send everything, because if you send a lot of stuff, then there's a greater chance that they'll begin to understand some of it. When you think of the history of how the hieroglyphics were decoded, that didn't take very long. It was an exercise of the 19th century, and really the reason it didn't take so very long, yes, there was the Rosetta Stone, but the real point was that there's a lot of hieroglyphics. So I would send a lot of information to the aliens. The more you send, the greater the chances that they'll figure at least some of it out.
Interesting. And so in 2014, after your speech in Congress, the funding for extraterrestrial life research was approved, and it was unfortunately terminated back in 2016. So do you think Congress might consider such funding again soon? And how much money do you need, and what kind of equipment would you need to prove that aliens do exist?
Well, of course, you cannot guarantee that you would, that you would find the aliens. That you can't do. That's like sending Captain Cook into the South Pacific in the 18th century. Hey, I want to guarantee you're going to find something interesting. You can't guarantee that. But the amount of money required to do this sort of science is very small. It's a few $1 million a year, which by the standards of any NASA program or any other major science research program is terribly small. At the moment, it's all being done with private donations.
It's all so fascinating, and we truly appreciate your time. Seth Shostak, senior astronomer at the SETI Institute, thank you.
Thank you.